I'm in a little bit of a, like, I'm enjoying, I was in Acapulco. This is like a party town, man. It's just fun. I've been drinking and smoking and being stupid, but I go through these phases and then I get healthy again. So forgive me anyway. This is like air for Irish people anyway, so I had done something like this before. I was on the first Free Gaza mission. In 2008, we sailed from Cyprus with 2 boats, and we managed to sail into Gaza. That was the first time that had happened in 41 years. Nobody had sailed into Gaza from international waters for 41 years. No, believe me, you'll be humbled. It is inspiring. What I see in Gaza, however, is also a stain on the conscience of humanity. We have allowed a population of people, by our own financing, to be collectively punished. In truth, people I think I heard you refer to it as a prison camp. That's not really correct from my perspective. It is a concentration camp. Literally. Because in a prison camp, generally, if you're in prison, then you will get 3 square meals, you'll get medical attention, you'll have these things generally in a prison. In a concentration camp, and you'll also have committed supposedly a crime. In Gaza, your crime is being Palestinian. That's it. So, like the Jews and the Gypsies and whatnot, that's your crime. There you go. That's where you go. So it is much more a concentration camp than it is a prison camp. And we are financing this concentration camp. And we are allowing, at this point now, 900,000 plus children. It's like, I don't know, the way it played out was uncanny.
We're going to look at Ken O'Keefe describing his interactions and experience on the Mavi Marmara, the Turkish cruise ship, in 2010. They went to take supplies and to help the people in Gaza. Between Turkey and Israel, all the political stuff went back and forth for a few years. And in the end, Turkey forgave them. There was no activity. Nobody paid for any of the debts, and everything's honky-dory, dookie-wookie. So Ken O'Keefe was a U.S. Marine Gulf War veteran. Both him and Chris Boleyn were at the Open Mind Conference. They know each other. They support each other. Ken O'Keefe, Chris Boleyn, 9/11, U.S. Liberty, Zionism, Rothschild, and high treason. Below that is the original source video for this one I'm working on. I increased the speed to 1.25, and you could listen to it if you want. Not if you understand what I said. You could go back and even listen to the original. So it's 7 minutes at 1.25. I like the helicopter part of it, where they put a rope down on the deck from a helicopter and it's not guarded by anybody, and the people in the life preservers take the rope and tie it around part of the ship. We're going to take a look at the numbers of the Mavi Marmara situation and talk about the probability, or at least think about it, the low probability. Ken had been on the first group of ships to successfully reach Gaza in 41 years when he was there in 2008. The Mavi Marmara was in 2010. It was a 300-foot Turkish cruise ship, multiple decks. That's a big ship. There were 700 activists on board. 200 of them were men. Ken is the only white guy on the ship. The men were divided to defend the ship when the Israelis approached into roughly 33 teams of 6 men each, and they were placed around the ship. Ken was second in command of his 6-man team, which were positioned at the aft, the rear of the cruise ship. During the attack, 3 Israeli commandos were captured. Of the 3 captured, 2 of them fell into Ken's lap and were disarmed by him. 1 pistol, 1 rifle. The guy with the pistol, I don't know, he never had a rifle. After the first one, Ken left the area, and when he returned to the same spot, the second one fell from up above. Ken got a 9mm pistol from the first Israeli and did not know what to do with it. Ken was a Marine hero of the Gulf. This event was supposedly filmed by a journalist of Press TV. I've never seen the footage. He didn't know what to do with the pistol, even though he's experienced experienced. He made his way through sniper fire and onto the bridge. The captain yelled at him and told him to get that gun out of here. So he went back into the fire and he had bullets whizzing by his ears. He knew they needed evidence. So he unloaded the 9mm, threw the bullets into the ocean, and hid the gun. Now he has evidence of an unloaded pistol. Ken had went to look into the eyes of the captured commandos later. What he saw was little boys like victims of an abusive father. Not only does he capture some of the best trained commandos in the world, they got caught and they were little puppy dog eyes, and they were like little boys from abusive fathers, and Ken was far superior. The commandos were eventually thrown overboard. Even though 9 activists were killed, 6 supposedly double-tapped, executed behind the back of the head. Tap, tap. They didn't need evidence because the Israelis eventually took over the ship. The one American that got shot 5 times and died, and he was double-tapped, was a Turkish American who Ken had talked to on the ship, and the kid looked up to him. Ken was beat up by the Israelis at a detention site. All right, let's go over the numbers. Ken was the one successful person on the ship that had landed in Gaza in 2008. It had 700 people on board, 200 men. Ken is the only white guy on the ship. The men were divided into 33 6-man teams around the ship. 3 commandos were captured. 2 of them fell into Ken's lap and he disarmed them. We grew up with these Hollywood movies. You see The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. He's in Japan. He gets captured. He becomes an ultimate samurai in months. The Japanese woman falls in love with him, and he goes and he fights for the last of the samurai, and he takes on all these people, even though they've had it for 600 years. He's the best, the white guy, and he kills and he dies, and it's a tragic hero. Oh my God. People on YouTube that host guests, I hold them responsible for the guests they have on. If they're shills, they should investigate them first. People following Patrick Little, he's going to run for office and he says whatever he wants about Jews, and YouTube hasn't wiped this stuff off of YouTube, and you still get to see it, and you don't think they're involved in it? We see these people come out of nowhere. Eventually they'll have 30,000 subs and they'll be leading the conversation on YouTube, and nobody questions it. People, please be obnoxious and rude and curse at me and really call me a shill, because some of the Burns militia, I spent 3 weeks doing one video. I put all kinds of time into this research and it gets ignored. I'm retired so I can do this. I take it on like it's a term paper. And I really would like an excuse to get the fuck off of here and get on with my life, really. We Americans have no freaking clue what it's like to have a war in our country, to fight people, to see your family die. We're sitting here whacking on YouTube, and it's going to get a lot worse. And it's going to happen, and everybody, I love you, baby. I do. I love you.
Inspiring. I mean, I could go.
And those of you who follow Ken have seen that he participated in the Mavi Marmara flotilla, the Gaza flotilla, 6 ships, May of 2010. Ken was on board that ship when 9 people were killed. 1 subsequently died. 6, according to the UN report, received extra judicial assassination by the Israeli commandos. Could you briefly describe that experience for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, so briefly, we set out towards Gaza. You know, this was a ship with about 700-800 people on it. When we were sailing out of Cyprus on our way to Gaza, one of the Turkish brothers came up to me and said, "Listen, would you like?" I had a camera and whatnot. "Would you like to document the event, or would you like to be part of defending the ship?" And because there were so many journalists and so many camera people and whatnot, and I do have a background that makes it possible for me to actually be part of defending, I said, yes, I'd be honored to be part of the defense. So I'm pretty sure I did not see. There was about maybe, out of 700 people, there was about maybe 200 men, roughly, who were involved in the defense of the ship, and I don't recall any other white people. I think I was the only white guy who was involved in that. It's a real honor to even be invited to have that kind of level of trust. And each of us were put in basically 6-person teams, and I was put in a team that had responsibility over the aft, the stern of the ship, the back of the ship, on a certain deck. And I was actually put in second in command. There was a Turkish man who was like the leader of this 6-person team, and I was second. So if something happened to him, I would have been in charge. Again, a great honor. So I was on the aft portion of the ship in the 6-person team, but there were teams positioned all around the ship, including the top deck, which is where the majority of violence occurred. And the Israelis, they attacked right during the morning prayers. There was no doubt about them, heavily armed on the ship. And so I asked the guy who was in charge of the 6-person team, I said, listen, can I go up top? And he said, yes, go ahead. And I started to go up to the top of the ship. And it's like, I don't know, the way it played out was uncanny. I got up to the deck below the top deck and was getting ready to go into the area where you could go up to the top deck. And when I got to the hatch where you enter the area where you could go up to the top, an Israeli commando was pushed over the top deck and fell literally right in front of me, right there. And as he fell, I saw, he had a 9mm pistol holstered. Immediately, I went after that pistol. As it turns out, there was a reporter, a journalist from Press TV, who was filming this. He told me later he was filming this. And so he has footage of me basically getting down to the ground and taking that 9mm pistol. Another brother came, and I took the pistol, and he grabbed this guy. This guy, the first commando, he was pretty traumatized. He was there, but he wasn't fully there. It was the easiest thing in the world. I'm not going to make it out like I pulled some fucking great kung fu move, and, it was pretty simple. Priority, get that fucking weapon off that guy. And I got the weapon off of him. He was pulled inside. And I didn't know what to do with this weapon, It had been said that we could throw it. Am I going way too far with this, or is this... Okay. So I had this weapon, and it had been said that you could throw the weapon into the sea, but I was like, no, bullshit, this is evidence. We have to keep this weapon. Because I still believed at that point that we had the potential to get away. Fuck you, we're going to fucking make it. And so I had this weapon. I held it in a safe position across my chest, part of my Marine Corps training. And I was walking around the ship, trying to figure out where to take the weapon. I was asking some of the Turkish brothers, where can we put this? I even went up to the bridge where the captain was. I went up to the bridge, and I have to laugh at this, I went up to the bridge, and I peeked in, and there's the captain, and I said, listen, I've got this weapon, is there somewhere to put it? He said, get the fucking thing out of here. Because he knew, if there's a weapon scene in here, and they come in, they're going to fucking shoot me dead, heartbeat. So, okay, yeah, sorry. I left the bridge, and I started moving down the back of the ship, and it's unnerving, to say the least. And I realized that at a certain point, fucking hey, man, this is nuts. They've got snipers, they've got laser fucking guided rifles. I'm running around with a weapon in my hand, and I've just heard a couple of bullets fucking ricochet by me. And that was when I actually got into Marine mode, and got down low to the ground and started being really aware of where I was moving. Eventually what I decided was to take the bullets out of the weapon. So I did. I ejected the bullets out of the weapon. I took the bullets and I gave them to a man named Ismail Patel. Gave him the bullets, and then I took the weapon and I hid it somewhere on the ship in the hopes that it would be used as evidence against him. Once I was done with that, I decided, I wanted to go back up to the top. I knew the top of the ship was where shit was happening. And I went back to the other side of the ship, and I went to almost exactly the same spot I was when I encountered the first Israeli commando, and I shit you not, almost in exactly the same position, another Israeli commando was pushed over the top deck and fell right in front of me. You could hardly script it. This one was more alert. He was definitely alert, and he had a submachine gun shouldered across his abdomen, and he was on the ground, and he was fucking working like he was getting to his weapon. And I saw that he was doing that, and I got down to him, and I grabbed his hands. His hands were getting to the trigger, and I grabbed his hand and was pulling on his hands, pulled his hands off of the weapon, and another brother came and pulled the weapon off his shoulder, took the weapon. I believe he threw it into the sea. And this commando was also taken, totally disarmed. So I was involved in disarming 2 of 3 commandos. There was a third one who was also disarmed. We had possession of 3 of their best. These are like the Navy SEALs, the top of the top, the best of the best for the Israelis. And we had 3 of them. And they were taken inside the bowels of the ship, and they were surrounded by 50, 100 men. They were ours. We could have done anything with them. And there were people on that ship and they were isolated. And eventually, the decision came down from the leader of the organization that had bought the ship to let them go, and we let them go. We took them to the bow of the ship and allowed them basically to jump off Two of them jumped off. The first one that I was involved, he was still in a state of shock. And he didn't even have the strength to jump off. So eventually the Israelis got to the bow and they got him there. One of them, by the way, was an American citizen. How many people know of the American citizen that was murdered on that ship? Yeah, exactly. That's how it's meant to be. His name is Furkan Doğan, 19-year-old kid of Turkish descent. Not an American-sounding name. Bummer. Wish his name was like John Adams or some shit like that. People would have paid more attention. It's Furkan Doğan. And this 19-year-old kid, which I did have a little exchange with him on the ship. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to know him better, but we did have a little exchange. I have a feeling he knew a little bit about who I was as well. He seemed to kind of look at me in a way that was kind of admiring. And what little time I had with this young man was, he clearly was a bright light. This is a good kid. Good kid. He was actually accepted in medical school and was meant to go to medical school in the States later, in the summer. This was in summer. He was meant to go to medical school later that year. And this kid had been shot. He was shot 5 times.
All I need is the air that I breathe.